What kinds of ingredients would somebody who wants to cook mostly healthy vegan meals make sure to have at home, stock for their pantry every week? Let's look at what I keep in my produce section, in my pantry, and also some refrigerated ingredients. In terms of the produce, first of all, every week I make sure that I have red onions and lots of them. I use 1 or 2 every single day. The onions that are yellow are pretty good too, but the red ones are screaming, look at all the nutrients I have. And they add a lot of flavor to every meal. 1 onion a day keeps the doctor away. Also important for flavor, really good garlic is totally worth it. Yes, you can buy a big jar of prepared garlic, usually imported from China, for pretty cheap, but it's worth paying a little bit more at a farmer's market for your best local garlic. I especially like this one because it has big cloves, so it takes less time to remove the skins and deal with them in prep. So love the garlic, adds so much flavor as well as lots of important nutrients. And ginger is also a favorite. I prefer organic ginger because the flavor is a bit more powerful. However, I have to use less. Try different kinds, they're not all the same. But love the ginger, adds a lot of flavor in Indian and Asian kinds of dishes. Also here, something I make sure to always buy, some good carrots. Also somewhere it is worth paying a little extra to get really nice sweet carrots, not starchy, fibrous carrots that don't taste anything. So if you don't feel like eating a carrot just like you would eat an apple, then maybe you need to upgrade your carrots. Every week I make sure to have some classic cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, or both if possible. They are great to add at the last minute to simple dinners, and they're just delicious to eat. Also sweet, perfect to steam and add to any bowl. Special mushrooms. Mushrooms, by the way, are not plants, which makes me not completely plant-based. They are part of the fungi kingdom. Isn't that awesome? But I love mushrooms. These are shimeji, but really any kind works. Also a great addition to so many different quick meals you can make, like a quick stir fry with a bit of tofu and lots of vegetables on a weeknight, but also add the mushrooms. They bring in a really special profile in terms of nutrients that is great to have. I make sure to stock some orange sweet potatoes, aka yams. They're not actually yams, they're orange sweet potatoes, but most people call them yams. The flesh is orange, the skin is full of phytonutrients, just like blueberries, for example, so make sure to eat those skins. And apparently the most nutritious way to cook them is to boil them. Who knew? And another favorite of mine, kale. I make sure to buy kale every week. It shows up in salads. I even add it to many other dishes, any kind of simmered dish, where I chop it really fine, and it adds one more type of plant to my diet every week. My favorite is lacinato, or dinosaur kale. As you can see here, it's pretty compact, because if you buy the classic curly kale, it would be about, you know, this big for the same quantity of kale. So I like this one, but it's good to vary your options on a regular basis. And finally, in the produce department, shame on me, but I do buy boxed greens like this. To me, it's a good indicator that I'm eating my greens throughout the week. I make sure to have a big salad most days of the week. If I'm approaching Thursday and there's still a lot of greens in there, it means I need to pick up the pace. These are easy. They're the baby variety, so they don't taste as strongly in terms of the cruciferous. The kale here would have a bit more of a bitter taste if it was full grown, but the baby stuff, it just melts away in soups, and of course to eat just as a plain salad, it's quite sweet. Now moving on to some pantry ingredients, the dry ingredients that keep for a long time. So there's many categories, but the first category that you always want to have is, where did they go? Canned beans. Okay, you need to have beans. Yes, personally, I prefer to cook beans from scratch. They're dry, that's great. But really, you want to make sure to eat those beans. You need to be eating 1 to 1.5 cups of beans every day. So make sure they're just easy to eat. And the easiest way to do that is to have canned beans at hand. I don't have any to show you. They're over there in the cabinet. Trust me, they're there. And they're really awesome to have. Then you need to have some dry lentils. So chickpeas and black beans, for example, perfectly great to have from a can. However, when it comes to lentils, like this, in my opinion, it makes no sense to buy them in a can because they cook so quickly. And so you're lugging those cans around and then you have to lug them out to the recycling with the metals, when you can just buy them dry. They're lighter, you can carry a greater quantity, and they're way cheaper. So I prefer to have dry lentils. I keep red lentils, also green or brown ones, the classic ones. And typically I will also have in my pantry French depuis lentils or black beluga lentils that are more firm, and I like them better in salads. I cannot say that I like normal green and brown lentils in salads. I find them more appropriate for soups, for example. Another ingredient you need to have is grains and pseudo grains. So here I have millet, I have quinoa just to show you, but of course I have brown rice that I cook following the pasta method. I suggest that you look that up. It's also on my website, and the easiest, healthiest way to cook brown rice blog post. I will put a note below. And some other grains you might want to have are farro, wheat berries, barley. Those are all grains that take a while to cook, so they're fabulous for batch cooking in particular. What else do we have? Oh, lightly processed grain products. Not absolutely everything in my kitchen is whole grain, and that is fine. We get so much fiber in this family from all the beans and the lentils that we eat and the vegetables. It's fine that we have this normal, not whole grain pasta, and having those in the kitchen means that we eat a homemade meal that sometimes is really quick to prepare and super nutritious because we also add a lot of vegetables and a lot of beans to every meal. Those are good to have. Some other kinds of ingredients you might want to stock. Very important to bring the full array of nutrients, seeds and nuts. For example, I have these raw cashews here, chia seeds, and raw pumpkin seeds. Those are my favorite. And I like that seeds are cheaper than nuts considering the quantity that we eat. It's great to have them. And sometimes if I want a little bit of plant milk, for example, for baking, or for a recipe that involves like adding milk or cream to sauce, then I just put a handful of seeds or nuts in the blender with a bit of water, and it makes exactly the kind of liquid that I need, plus a little bit of added fiber. So those are great to have. Dried fruit. Did you know that dried fruit have lots of iron? Who knew? Even fruit like jackfruit has a lot of iron, and they're nice to add to salads. They add a little burst of sweetness. Strongly recommend. What else should we have in our pantry? Well, we need to have some spices. I personally prefer to have the basics, and then I can mix and match them myself. Things like cumin, oregano, coriander, turmeric, very important to add with pepper, black pepper, and cinnamon is a favorite of mine. And of course, some herbs like basil, parsley, thyme, rosemary. I'm not a big fan of rosemary, but if it's your thing, go ahead and have some. And you can use those as well as smoked paprika. I love smoked paprika. It adds a nice smoky flavor to a lot of dishes, especially like chilies and some curries even. What else do I keep in my pantry? I keep some flavorful vinegars, the classics, balsamic vinegar, apple cider vinegar. Those are great for deglazing. You can read more about deglazing in my article about soups. And rice vinegar is also more appropriate for the Asian kinds of dishes. Soy sauce or something similar, whether it's Bragg's Aminos or gluten-free tamari sauce, those add a lot of depth of flavor to many dishes. I keep that. Canned tomatoes, watch again for the quality here. It makes a difference. Some canned tomatoes are really quite tasteless, so make sure that you find a type that you like. And look at the ingredients because some brands add sugar, unfortunately, which is kind of weird. Another ingredient that's great to have is canned young jackfruit that's in brine or water, not the ripe jackfruit. The ripe jackfruit will be yellow on the can, whereas the young jackfruit is green, and that is what you're looking for. It is not a super nutritious ingredient other than the iron, as I just mentioned, but it is just a fun thing to have, and I usually combine it with beans to make a complete meal. Some other ingredients in the pantry to keep at hand: nutritional yeast. And by the way, not every nutritional yeast has B12 vitamins, so don't count on that. Make sure to supplement your B12. And some bonus ingredients for special meals: coconut milk. I tend to keep that for when we have guests over. They like the flavor a lot. Some ingredients that add a boost of flavors like Kalamata olives, roasted red peppers, sun-dried tomatoes. Those are bonuses. You don't have to have them, but they're nice to use once in a while. Finally, what do I keep in the fridge? My core plant-based, healthy vegan ingredients to compose into multiple meals. Well, I could not make a video about this without talking about tofu. I love tofu. It is a great source of protein, but above all, it's great. It tastes awesome. It brings a diversity of textures. You have to think of tofu not as a meat replacement, but more as something that replaces fresh cheese like mozzarella or egg whites, for example, but without all the saturated fat that nobody needs, and certainly without any of the cholesterol. There is a tiny bit of saturated fat in tofu, but it does not compare. And once you learn how to use it, you cannot live without it. And I have always many different types of tofu in my fridge, but those include firm or extra firm that I use in stir fries, medium that I use in noodle soups, or miso soup, for example. I like this pressed tofu here. That's kind of on the thin side. It's not a huge block, but we like the taste of it. Notice that some tofus have only calcium as a curdling agent, whereas others will have calcium and magnesium, which is magnesium chloride, also called nigari from the Japanese. It's based on seawater, and it has a little bit of a more bitter taste. Personally, I prefer the tofus that have calcium first, but I know some people much prefer the magnesium kind of tofu. It's whatever rocks your boat, your tofu boat. Another ingredient to keep: miso paste. It keeps forever. It's brown in color, but some of them are more reddish or a lighter shade, and this adds so much flavor to many dishes without so much of the downsides of adding as much salt. Another ingredient I like to keep, if you can find a vegan kind of kimchi. This is the Canadian store brand at Loblaws. Rooster is their brand for many Asian style things, and kimchi adds a bit of crunch from the cabbage. It's a fermented food. It has a ton of salt, so don't abuse the kimchi, but I find that adding just a couple of forkfuls on top of a stir fry, for example, brings a nice diversity of texture and makes the dish more complete. And some may want to have plant milks. I don't really use these except for sometimes if the kids want to have cold cereal, they might have plant milk. If you're a milk drinker, then you will want to have those in your fridge. Also, things like lemons and limes, or lemon and lime juice. It's good to have the citrus juices to add a big source of vitamin C to your stir fries, for example, or any time you're deglazing, because the vitamin C helps with the absorption of the iron. And I mean, it just tastes better that way with the zing from the lime. It just makes the stir fry so much tastier. And something else I keep in the fridge, I'm from Quebec, so I have maple syrup typically, and I might use the maple syrup in small quantities to improve a dressing, for example, or if I made a sauce or a stew that's not turning out exactly how I want it to, I might add a teaspoon, no more than that, of maple syrup, and it just transforms the dish instantly. Your mileage may vary, but I find it nice to have it in the fridge. And so those are the ingredients I keep. I would love to hear if I forgot anything, and I look forward to seeing you again in the Vegan Family Kitchen. So make sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss another video. Thank you.